Brace for impact. This is almost like a demographic shockwave that will hit the real estate market. Whether you're a real estate investor, homeowner, or renter, this will affect you. This is the future, and it's seismic in its profundity and import on the entire U.S. housing market and all of society, yet practically no one knows that this is coming. Hi, I'm Get Rich Education founder and Forbes Real Estate Council member Keith Weinhold. Demography is destiny. It's a quote attributed to 19th century philosopher Auguste Comte, and it means that the size and structure of a society will influence its future. Tracking the age of a population over time sharpens a forecast. It is completely axiomatic that in 10 years, a 25-year-old will be 35. No kidding. Well, the average age of today's first-time homebuyer is 35. Take a look at this. With thanks to John Burns Consulting, between they and I, we're really bringing U.S. Census data to life. The U.S. had a hefty 4 million plus births per year every single year from 1990 to 2010, which is going to provide a tailwind for housing demand through the next decade or more. A surge. That's the shockwave that's coming. And the U.S.'s peak birth year occurred in 2007. We'll add 35 years to that, as that's the age of the average first-time homebuyer. And this means that, on average, they'll buy their first home in the early 2040s. Those that can't afford a home, they're going to be out on their own by then as renters. So this demographic wave is coming. Whether it's to own or rent, a lot of people will need more homes. Now that we've looked at the past, let's see how this sets up population and housing demand for the future. More than 13,000 Americans are reaching prime home buying age every single day for the next decade, turning 35 each day for the foreseeable future. You can see the years across the bottom, 2024, 2025, 2026, and so on. This many people are turning 35 every day of that year. The U.S. has 144 million housing units today, and if we don't get serious about building more housing fast, and it seems likely that we won't, this will be analogous to a demographic shockwave that hits the housing market. We're going to need a lot more housing of all types. The population aging into home ownership is projected to exceed the population aging out as well, like deaths, for a long time. It will pump housing demand. These are just domestic births. This doesn't even account for additional demand from immigration. Immigrants tend to be younger and are renters for a long duration before they own a home, if they ever do. On top of this, take a look here. The average number of people per household, people living in a home, is falling too. It just keeps sliding down over the decades. What this means is that more housing is required now than in earlier generations, even if the population just stayed the same. But the population, of course, won't stay static. To pile on here, the overall U.S. population is projected to grow too, from 342 million today up to 383 million in 30 years per the CBO. The demographics for senior housing are even more bullish. And of course, when I use the word bullish here, all this bullish sentiment, the positive sentiment, that's from the real estate investor side and the homeowner side. If you're looking to buy your first home or rent one, this is all more discouraging than most people's attempts to live a balanced life, or perhaps more discouraging than your forgotten resolution to stop cursing. This baked into the cake demand, though, it is almost perfectly predictable and of seismic importance to the real estate market, but yet more investors fixate on something like the Fed's next interest rate decision. Is it a quarter-point cut or a half-point cut? Or whether the unemployment rate moves, say, 0.2%. That stuff matters, but it's both harder to predict and way less significant. The bottom line here, the learning moment, is that demographics reveal that housing demand should stay high for decades. Expect ever higher home prices, higher occupancy rates, and higher rents, you yourself can benefit by owning a lot of rental properties. Well, looking further into the future, what about the US's overall growth rate, like say 50 years from now? How many more decades will our population grow? And how does immigration factor into all of this, including 1 million new migrants that you might not know about just from Cuba alone recently? I sorted out what all this means in this related video that I recently made right here.